I'm at a grove of redwood trees. It's located up at Sanborn Park in the Santa Cruz Mountains. I used to teach a class here. It was the forestry conservation days, and there was this big circle of redwood trees, as you can see me above my head here. Interesting juxtaposition of my head to block out the sun. So anyway, I had all these classrooms of kids. They had a week of forestry conservation days, and every day there's different classrooms, sometimes 20 or 30 classrooms would come through here, and the teacher and about 15 or 20 kids would come through. And I stood in the middle of this grove of trees, and I was talking about the difference between second growth trees and old growth. And I stated that every one of these trees is a second growth tree, because a long time ago, the mother tree in this group either was cut down or fell down, and all of these trees are resprouts from a big root system. And then I asked all the kids, I said, okay, which way did the tree fall? It was pretty obvious to me, but not many of the kids got it. There's one opening here. And when I used to teach the class, this deck was not here. They've made this kind of an area for weddings and different events, and I've actually attended quite a few weddings in this circle of trees right here. But we used to stand out in the middle here, and I rigged a rope way, way, way high up here. I think I put a rope from tree to tree, and I set it in the center, and I brought it all the way down, and I had a climbing belt, and I'd ask for one of the kids to put on this little belt that I had, and I'd hoist them up a little bit, and I'd toss them way up in the air over here, and they'd come back, and then I'd lower them to the ground. And that was the last part of every classroom. They just loved it. And one of the classrooms, the teacher, a young woman, probably 25 or so, she says, "Can I do it? Can I do it?" And I looked at the kids, and I said, "Should she do it?" And they all went, "Yeah!" So I put her in the belt, and I hoisted her up in the air, and one of my guys gave her a really good push. She went way up high. And when she was at the top of the peak of the light, I looked at all the kids and I said, "Should I drop her?" And they all went, "Yeah!" So I let go of the rope. She went all the way down. I caught her just before she hit the ground. But boy, was she pissed at me. So if you've never been up to Sanborn Park, up off of Highway 9, well worth a visit. I'm on my way home, so I stopped up here. And the place is almost deserted. There's a few cars. I think there's probably about a dozen cars in the entire park. And they've got a campgrounds way up there. They've got an RV campground up over here. And this is the Peterson Grove. They got a nice big picnic area down here. I've attended quite a few big weddings that utilize this space right here, and dancing and all kinds of activities. It's been a fun park. It's been a place that I've attended many, many weddings over the years. Somebody asked me a question the other day about my YouTube channel. They said, who is your target audience, as well as who is actually watching the videos on my channel? And so I did some of the analytics. I was looking at it, and of course I can't tell whether you're an arborist or a homeowner just interested in trees, or if this is a subject that interests you. But I did get a little information about the age group, and I'm pretty much from 25 on. It's pretty balanced, with a little bit greater number of people watching in the 65 and over category. What I found a little disturbing was the youth, all the way up to age 25. I had less than 5% of my total views on the channel are from young people, which is not too surprising, because hey, I'm an old guy. What young guy wants to listen to an old guy? Now, that being said, you young people out there, if you're watching this, listen to the old people, because we've lived it, we've been there, we've done it. You haven't been there yet. And the stories or the things that we're teaching you or telling you can be very, very useful. I think back to a lot of the mentors I had in my life, and I paid attention. I really did. Maybe I'm different than a lot of younger people, but the first mentors that I had that I really appreciated was when I was first starting this business, 19, 20 years old. I met an old guy that was, he was in his 60s, but he had been doing tree work his whole life, kind of like me now. And he taught me a lot of really, really valuable things. Of course, I had the opportunity to work with him on jobs. So seeing it firsthand was a real plus. But he was always telling me stories about things that happened to him and things that went on. And those stories, they actually sink in. You know, they're like little doorways in my mind. And when I come up with a similar type of a situation, you know, I'll remember, you know, yeah, Dick told me a story about that, and that's what happened. And it gives you a little bit of insight as to what might happen to you. So listen to the old guys. We're not all bad. You know, the audience that I'm really seeking are the young climbers, the guys out there that want to follow into this type of a career. And if you pay attention to my channel, you're going to see things that will help you out immensely in advancing your career. Understanding trees, learning how to read a tree, learning how to see a situation, having a mentor to tell you and show you is so valuable. And I want to be that mentor to you. So if you know young guys, or if you're in the business and you're trying to learn, drop me a line, you know, send me a comment, you know, or you can email me, blairglenn@gmail.com. I'm easy to find. I try to answer all my comments to the best of my ability, unless I get overwhelmed, which happens. But yeah, it's a great career. I'm celebrating 50 years in business, and I'm still climbing almost every day. You know, Monday through Friday I'm out working. Today just so happens to be an estimate day, running some consultations, and I'll show you a little bit about what I'm running into, and hopefully you can see some of the stuff that I do and possibly relate to it. So thanks for taking the time and helping me out, and pass on my YouTube channel too. I really appreciate it when you show somebody else what you like to watch, and I like knowing that I'm helping people. You know, we work in a lot of developments, townhouse and apartment complexes, and you have to think about the way that this place was developed initially. You know, imagine the heavy equipment coming in here and grading this old farm property and cutting it down so that they can put in foundations, and they pretty much scrape all the good soil away and make everything compacted for, you know, the development for the buildings. Then they come in and follow up with the planting. And as you can see by the root system of this pine tree that has died, this was a Monterey pine, that the roots of this tree are almost entirely on the surface of the soil. And you can look at many of the trees within this complex and you'll see the same thing. The majority of the roots are within the top, say 24 inches of the surface. This big bad boy fell over. This fell over in the storm, and this had a reason why it fell over. There was pipes over on the far side, and I'll show you in a second there, but the back of this tree, all the roots were severed for the new pipes, and it's clear to me that the old original pipes broke. Presumably the tree constricted the pipes, and this was a pool of water in there, and I found root rot up underneath the base of this tree that also weakened the tree. You know, but the majority of the root system here is fairly intact, but it's all sitting on a plate and it's not very deeply rooted. Now we can look at the complex and surmise that because this is a development, the depth of the good quality soil was compromised when they came in with heavy equipment and graded it. Now the point of this video is there are certain varieties of tree that you should avoid when you have a development. So by putting these big beautiful redwood trees, you know, in this complex, immediately the place looks really beautiful and the trees grow fairly fast. But you've got the long-term problems. These trees are, none of these trees are over 50 years old. The complex was built in 1975. And you can see this straight line right here where these new pipes were put in. They severed all the way along, and they severed the roots on that adjacent tree as well. So I'm making the recommendation that they remove this tree. But does that mean that all the redwood trees are weak? Well, not necessarily. And it's really hard to jump to conclusions. When something happens here, people have a tendency to panic. So I've been doing some consulting on some of the other trees within the complex, especially those big bad boys over there that if they fall down, they're going to take out somebody's home. It's a tough call. What do? You know, you could count the rings here. I did, and I counted 48 years of growth here on this tree, which is consistent with the development of the complex. So I guess that gets me to the fact of right tree, right place. And if developers get involved in making the choices rather than an arborist or a qualified landscape architect, the future of the complex can be in serious peril due directly to the choice of the trees. Now, had they planted lots of small trees, like you see that olive tree over there in the distance, you know, that's never going to be a serious problem. It's never going to fall apart. And there's lots and lots of choices of trees that they could have put into this complex that would have made the longevity of the complex work. So if you're in a new complex and you look at the trees that the developers chose for you, you can see what happens in about 50 years. They also chose a number of silver maples, and 50 years ago that was thought to be a pretty good choice. But if you followed my channel, you'll know that the silver maple is a species of tree that when you make wounds, they rot out quite quickly. And this tree has been pruned a number of times over the years, and all of them are showing evidence of tip dieback, branches breaking, failures throughout the tree. And it's thrown out water sprouts throughout, but the longevity of this tree, because of the species, is not very good.